Florida is both a magnet and a lightning rod these days, and nobody knows that more than the folks who track and encourage tourism. And to discuss that, we're joined by Visit Jack's president and CEO, Michael Corrigan. Hey, Michael Corrigan, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. We appreciate it.
So I want to get to some travel numbers in a bit, but let's start with these recent travel advisories. There were 4 separate groups that made public statements about coming to Florida, not being a safe place. Equality Florida, the NAACP, the Florida Immigrant Coalition, and the League of United Latin American Citizens. What impact has that had? Have you seen any impact because of those travel advisories?
Well, anytime you have a travel advisory, it has an impact. And those are state advisories that happen. And obviously, Visit Jacksonville, we monitor anything that happens that's related to tourism in Jacksonville and the state of Florida. And I'm really proud of our team because we started looking at how can we be a better destination long before these travel advisories came out. We created a committee that's constantly working on DEI issues and making sure that visitors that come here are having the experience that they want to have here. It's been incredible because we've learned tremendous amount from that committee that meets on a regular basis and talks about everything from what the media is saying, but even more importantly, what does a visitor interact? What happens to them when they get here, and how are they able to still have enjoyable time? And we're not seeing a real big impact of those advisories here in Jacksonville because we looked ahead of and said, how do we enhance that experience for visitors?
And so you've not seen cancellations of big events or anything like that?
We've had conversations with especially groups that are coming in about, what is the reaction to that? How is the community handling that? If you ask me what is the number one asset that Jacksonville brings to the tourism industry, it's the people. Because when these advisories come out, people call us, the partners that we work with, and says, how are we handling this? How are we addressing this? And we have great communication with them. And then when those groups are getting ready to come in, we're talking to them ahead of time. And many of them are saying, no, we're coming here because you're not changing because of the current news environment.
Mm-hmm. And so are you able to offer any kind of specific reassurances or do you take any steps to make people feel welcome when they do come? Or have conversations with venues ahead of time to make that happen?
100%. That's the number one advantage of working with Visit Jacksonville is that we're having those conversations with them. When a group, for instance, a group's coming in town, we're talking to every single aspect of their visit here in our community. If they're using, if it's just at a hotel and they're using the resources there, we're talking to the banquet managers and the general managers and the restaurateurs that are in there. And then we're talking to Downtown Vision, if the event's downtown, about how do you help those visitors move around downtown. And then if they're going off-site from the property, we're then talking to the venues they're talking about using. We're actually presenting the venues to them, giving them a cafeteria list of options, which they then pick of which ones they want. And then we already know those people at those individual places because we work with them on a daily basis.
And so your job, is making sure that people know the story of Jacksonville on the First Coast and, appreciate it, want to come here. Is it difficult to avoid getting dragged into the politics of the state, or are you sort of involved in the politics of the state? I mean, I know that Visit Florida statewide, made some statements after those travel advisories, calling them kind of a stunt and not legitimate.
We don't get involved in them because we don't have to, because we're working on a regular basis and we have allies in each area of the community that are saying, those are reports and those are facts that are coming out, but they're not real people in our community. And we connect with the real people in our community and put them directly in touch with those that have questions about it. For instance, if it's a law enforcement issue, we put them in touch with someone in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office that can talk to them directly about that. If there's a crosswalk situation, we connect them directly with the Public Works Department to talk about how we can improve that. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we do is that connectivity. So there's really never a drag us in or anything else because we're already actively involved with those groups and talking to them long before they get here, often 2 or 3 years before they get here, and addressing concerns they had. Because remember, you go on vacation or you go to a conference in another community to relax. And if you have concerns and issues before you get here, you're not going to relax when you get here. We feel very confident that people that come to Jacksonville start relaxing the moment they step on our soil.
Mm-hmm. If you're just joining us, we are talking to Visit Jack's CEO, Michael Corrigan, about the tourist climate on the First Coast. And you can join our conversation on air by calling 904 549-2937. You can also email First Coast Connect at wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. So this is National Travel and Tourism Week. How many people visit Jacksonville each year, and what actually constitutes a visitor?
Well, in 2022 is the last year that we have accurate numbers on it because we're still getting the numbers from 23, but 10.7 million overnight visitors came to Jacksonville. An overnight visitor is one half of the visitor population. The other half is day visitors, people that come into Jacksonville and visit and go back out. That's an additional 10 million visitors. So right around 21 million visitors came to Jacksonville last year. And that's just Jacksonville proper. That doesn't count the counties that surround Jacksonville. So it's an incredible number. I mean, if you look at the impact of that on our economy, 10% of the people that work in Jacksonville work in the hospitality industry. So
Wow.
it's a massive economic impact, positive one.
So how does that number compare, in terms of the overall trajectory of Jacksonville tourism in recent years?
We're back. Everybody took a dip when the pandemic hit here, obviously, but we're back up to the numbers we had pre-pandemic, and those were the highest numbers we've ever had, and they continue to grow. And we continue to see people, industries and companies investing in tourism in Jacksonville, so we know that things are going to look up for the years to come.
Is there any other way to measure the impact of tourism on the economy other than just the number of people that work in a hospitality type role?
Well, I think there's a couple different ways. One is that you look at future investment, as I just mentioned. If investors and corporations are making additional investments, that sends us a positive note. The consistent occupancy of your properties, your hotel properties, is important because then it says that you're not just a peak and valley. If you brought in brought in a Super Bowl, for example, your numbers would obviously spike tremendously and go back down. In Jacksonville, the mixture between business travelers and just pure leisure travelers is one of our key points. We don't have a large theme park that bring people here at certain times of the year. We work very purposefully to make sure that we're bringing people in on a consistent basis. Yeah, sure, there's curves in the occupancy and the revenue side of it, but because of the community that we are, those numbers seem to stay fairly consistent compared to other communities.
Talk a little bit about Jacksonville's identity, because I know that it has traditionally been this sort of like, when they come here, what should they do here? And the sense that the attractions are disparate, or if you want to go to the zoo, it's a long way from the beach, it's a long way from downtown. And what is the material that kind of holds it together, its identity?
That's an interesting one, Ann. Our new advertising campaign is we're the flip side of Florida, because we're so different than the rest of the state of Florida, and we used to kind of hide from that, but now we totally embrace it and say, no, if you want a really unique, special Florida, come to Jacksonville. We talk a lot about the ease of getting. Sure, things are sometimes 15, 20 minutes apart, but they're 15, 20 minutes apart unless you're trying to do it directly at rush hour in the morning or rush hour in the afternoon. You can get anywhere you want to get in Jacksonville in a half hour or less. We talk a lot about, especially to group tourism clients, getting off an airplane and coming to wherever you're going in Jacksonville. It's such an incredibly more positive experience than any other airport in the country. And we're selling that every single day, is that we're spread out. You're not going to be stacked on top of each other. You're not going to be just another number. One of the most unique things we have in tourism in Jacksonville is that every single visitor, it feels special because they're getting that individual service. So we see spread out and distance as a positive, not as a negative.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about some renovations that are apparently coming to our stadium here across the street. How is having a blackout on that stadium for a year or two during construction going to impact tourism in Jacksonville, and how are you preparing for that?
That's a great question. Visit Jacksonville's done a lot of research of what is that impact. Back when we were talking about 2 seasons of no football in the stadium, now we're talking about 1 season at reduced capacity, another season 27 being gone. We estimate 125,000 room nights are connected with the stadium for every year it's there. That's a combination of the Jaguar seasons, obviously, the Florida-Georgia game, the Gator Bowl, and several concerts in the stadium. So we've already begun speaking to corporations here in town. There's a way for them to help us offset that loss, and by bringing conventions and conferences that they're involved with into town. You think about anything, the associations that you're involved with through your industry, how many times you've invited that industry to come to Jacksonville and host their conference here versus going to another community around the country. we're confident that a combination of partnering with the local companies and organizations and associations to bring conferences here during that 2 year period that they're going to have the biggest effect, we can make up that 125,000 room night lost by new business that comes in town. And then secondly, and we can talk about this more, we're really, Visit Jacksonville's partnering to help really ramp up sports tourism outside the stadium, all the other sports tourism, to make up the other half of that loss that we might have. So that combination establishes a new 125,000 room night revenue that's not here today. When the stadium reopens, we continue that momentum, and we've really raised tourism revenue in Duval County because the stadium got shut down instead of losing it because it got shut down.
Let's talk a little bit about sports tourism, because I know that's been a big initiative of yours and of the city recently, trying to be more of a attraction for large sporting events. How is that going, and why is that the chosen priority as opposed to any other niche that Jacksonville offers?
Well, Visit Jacksonville works with a whole lot of different entities all the time, and we realized we did our work that every time we brought in a major sports event, a major can be everything from a simple conference, any tournament or anything else, all the way up to obviously NCAA championships and Super Bowls and everything of that nature. What we realized was we have incredible infrastructure here available for us to market to the sports industry, and it really was not being done to the level that we think it could be done. Council President Ron Salem introduced legislation appropriating $1.5 million in tourist development tax to that effort. And part of that legislation, he encouraged a nonprofit 501c3 to be created to help promote and enhance and spread that economic opportunity out to the larger community. Recently, the Jacksonville Sports Foundation was established, that 501c that Council President had in his legislation. And we've been really quite pleasantly surprised at the number of opportunities that are available to us that we just, in the past, there wasn't a cohesive effort to be able to do that as a complete community, and now we feel like there is, and we see a lot of great explosion of growth of sports tourism. And sports tourism affects every area of the community. If the University of North Florida, for example, has a track championship on one of the best tracks in the east side of the country, every hotel is positively impacted by that because of the number of athletes and family members that come in. It doesn't take an event in the stadium sold out in order to make a massive positive tourism impact. And those people that come in town enjoy our community, they eat in our restaurants, they shop in our stores, so everybody benefits from those types of events. This Jacksonville Sports Foundation is going to focus on bringing those types of events in every single week of the year to have a long-lasting positive impact.
I want to ask you a little bit about the bed tax, because one of the parts of this stadium renovation deal is allocating somewhat more, I think, permanently portions of the bed tax, the 6-cent bed tax that's levied for everybody who stays overnight in a hotel. You're also dependent on that money to promote and to, publicize this place and to bring in events. And are you at all concerned about having that bed tax, not available to you?
It's still going to be available to us. Real quick explanation for your listeners. There's a 6% bed tax that's charged on each night that someone stays in a hotel. The first third of that pays off the stadium bond issue. It has been for 30 years, and it will continue to do that. The second third is for maintenance in the sports complex area. And then the third is available to Visit Jacksonville or available for tourism promotions here in town. Visit Jacksonville's budget is 100% of that last third. Everything we do for visitors and residents and groups coming in is all free based because of that tax that's coming in to pay for what we do. The stadium proposal, as I understand it today, does not affect the 2% available for tourism promotion that Visit Jacksonville receives at all. It only somewhat reflects that middle 2%. So currently the maintenance of the sports complex can go to any venue that's there, but under the proposal that's before the council now, the complete 2% would go towards maintaining the stadium because they've realized that the stadium hasn't been maintained to the level that needs to be in order for the stadium to last another 30 years. So there's no effect on the tourism promotion. There is some changes will have to be made as far as maintenance of the facilities in the sports complex.
Are you hearing anything from those other facilities?
Not at this point.
Mm-hmm. And so it's a tight job market all over the place, and service industry hotel jobs, those can get pinched. How is the market for jobs affecting the workforce and finding people to work those jobs when visitors are coming to town?
That's been the biggest challenge as the tourism economy recovered in Jacksonville. One of the biggest challenges we had was finding enough workforce to be able to do that. Um, Having the opportunity to come talk to you on venues like this where we can talk about the positives of tourism, it encourages more people to get into the industry. We're seeing a recovery, but like most industries, it's not an overnight recovery. It's a longer recovery. It's caused our industry partners to look at how they can do things differently with less people, and that's affected mostly in the number. Do you clean a room every single day, or do you clean a room at a hotel every other day? Do you continue to have breakfast in the morning at a hotel, or do you have to end that because you don't have the people to do it? The industry nationwide has made changes to those policies in order to adjust for the reduced availability of workforce. We're seeing it changing back to normal because we continue, not just in Jacksonville, but around the country, and the tourism pros are all saying this is a phenomenal industry. You should come work in this industry, and that message is being received, and we're starting to see some workforce recovery because of that.
If there was one thing that you could, pick for this city, either to focus on or a funding, item that you could fund, or what would be the top of your wish list if you could just sort of have it your way, Michael Corrigan?
Wow. Well, we could always use more funding to market Jacksonville around the country. We've seen and we have proof through our marketing research that when we get the word out about Jacksonville, it brings people to Jacksonville. And if we could do that better, more people will come in and increase the revenue for the local businesses that count on tourism, and then obviously the city as a whole, because we'd bring in revenue to our city.
So money.
More money to be able to market Jacksonville around the world.
Hmm. Is there anything that you wish that the city would change about the way that it does its own business, or the things that it prioritizes, that you would like to see that would help the city become more marketable in and of itself?
I don't think so. I would tell you that Visit Jacksonville and the city of Jacksonville had an incredible relationship, and that we don't do anything without talking to the city about how we think it'll positively affect them, and the city talks to us on a regular basis about how what they do affect tourists in town. I think I mentioned this earlier. The number one thing that sets Jacksonville apart is that this mentality that we're all in it together. Everybody wants to help Jacksonville continue to be the city that we love. You talk to almost every single person, and they weren't born here. They moved here. They came here for some reason. It often starts with just a visit, and then they moved here because they love it so much. I've talked to everything from athletes to CEOs that have said, I didn't plan on staying in Jacksonville, but I don't know what it is about that place, but it really is unique. And that's what Visit Jacksonville has an opportunity to sell every day, that really unique experience that you can have when you come visit in Jacksonville. I mean, we obviously partner with the Chamber of Commerce, and I tell them, every business that's going to move here starts with a visit.
We've got a call. Eric in Arlington. Eric, good morning. Go ahead.
Yeah, the St. Johns River is what sets Jacksonville apart. Without the St. Johns River, this is sort of nowheresville. And that river has a lot of history, including the very first the French settlement in the 1560s, the very first battle between colonial powers in North America happened right here in what is now Jacksonville, right there along the river. So, I don't know if a museum would be in order or what, but I think that everybody could be proud of something that, a campaign that highlighted the river and made the river the destination rather than, worrying about football or whatever else. I think the river should be the focus point. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Well, we've got the Riverkeeper coming on here in just a moment, and I'm sure that she would love to have, more attention placed. Is that something that you market when you're talking about Jacksonville?
Yeah, absolutely. Jacksonville has 1,500 miles of shoreline, more than any other community in the state, and we market that every single day. If you look at marketing materials that we use on a regular basis, almost every single one of them has water. Most of them are river related. We use a shot of downtown constantly in our media. He's right. The river is an incredible asset. I was at a conference and somebody said, what would you tell any visitor that came to Jacksonville? I said, touch the water. Touch the water. And touch the water obviously be the river. Get on it somehow. Get on a water taxi. Somehow get on the river and see it. Go to the beach and touch the surf, or even go to a swimming pool and touch the water. If you want to have an incredible experience in Jacksonville and understand the power of the St. Johns River, just take 15 minutes and walk across the Main Street Bridge, the Blue Bridge downtown, or even the Fuller Warren on 995. The power and beauty of that river is one of the things we sell on a regular basis.
Well, Michael Corrigan, thank you so much for coming on this morning. Appreciate it.
Sure, thank you.